Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Superman Special Issue 1 from DC Comics. This is from 2018 and it's supposed to be a lead into the Superman series that Brian Michael Bendis is going to be doing. There's a couple different stories in here that are vastly different from each other. The first one is about Superman and Superboy going to Dinosaur Island to retrieve Captain Storm, who they promised to rescue but left him behind because he had to sacrifice himself for them. So they're finally getting around to going back there to get him, and they find him. It's really just about him being brought back. There's all these weird like monsters and whatnot, of course, and they run some tests on him, get him a cyber leg, that sort of thing. It's more of a slice of life story. It feels like it kind of goes nowhere. It felt like they were building up to something and then it just sort of ends. And we learn that Clark thinks that Lois is the world's greatest detective and Batman's second. So there's that. And this one was written by Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason. Art by Scott Goldwiski. I didn't like the art. I thought it was trash. And that story is the longest one, and it's probably pretty close to half the book. It's slightly over that, but the art was really hit and miss. There were a couple decent panels, but overall it was garbage. The next one was Strays and Strangers by Mark Russell and Brian Hitch on art, Alex Sinclair colors, Tom Napolitano letterer, Paul Kaminsky editor. Oh, and this was about a giant, what looks like crawfish of some sort or centipede thing, and everybody's like, kill it! And he's like, nope. It turns out it's just sad and lonely and scared, so he just gets rid of it and saves its life. And then he has to go in this building that's collapsing and save some old guy, and the old guy's pictures are all in there, but they're going to be destroyed, and Superman saves a puppy instead of saving the old guy's pictures. That's pretty much the whole story. It was that silly. Then the last story is Split Decision by Ian Flynn, writer, Carrie Andrews, arts and colors, letters by Tom Napolitano, Andrew Mario was assistant editor, and Paul Kaminsky editor again. Murray Javins is the group editor. And this is about Atomic Skull. He's been recruited into the Metropolis Police Department as kind of a special forces operative, and he's been doing work on this situation they've got. Shockwave is locked up in a building and he's refusing to come out, and of course Superman's there to help. Atomic Skull already scouted out, and Superman and Atomic Skull are going in to kind of try and talk him down. It doesn't really work. Apparently, these guys had been tortured in some sort of a detention facility previously. That's a storyline I'm not familiar with. But of course, they all resent Superman for that. Not the people that actually did it, but he locked them in there, so it's magically his fault, not their own criminal behavior. And then Atomic Skull has the opportunity to kill Superman with Shockwave because Superman's down, but Atomic Skull decides not to do that and helps Superman. Superman's like trying to give him a good job, attaboy, but Atomic Skull's having none of it, which is a little disappointing. I like Atomic Skull as a hero. I think he's got a lot of potential to be a really cool character in the same way that like Plastic Man reformed from being a villain, and I think there's a lot of potential there, but they're really kind of not doing anything with it when they could be. The art on this story was garbage. And the colors really don't fit the story either. They're too bright. And I understand that there's a certain amount of brightness that has to go with a Superman story, but they just were too vibrant and too neon, so it didn't really work. Overall, this was an incredibly poorly drawn book. All three stories had pretty terrible art. It was very lazy. The second story with the giant bug and the building collapses was probably the best one, and that's mostly because there were a lot of trace digital images from Google or whatever. Overall, the Captain Storm story was pretty good. All the stories were written well. The art was just bad, and they were all definitely backup stories. They weren't something that was worth $5 as a collective. I think this is a pretty forgettable issue, and honestly, I would have paid about $1 for it just to add it to the collection if I was a Superman collector. Since I don't really collect comics anymore, I thought it was a giant waste of my time, and it definitely was not worth my $5. It's not really worth anything over $1. So that's just my take on it. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing so you don't miss future reviews. And if you want to support the channel, Patreon links are in the description and on the about page, and we hope to see you on the next one.